Hey guys, how's it going? Ryan here. Now what you've just heard there was the magic of Snowflake, which is a free instrument plugin made by Boscomac. Now the reason why I'm making this video today is pretty simple. I think this is a pretty fun and unique plugin that I've been using a lot lately, and I just wanted to share it with you guys. It's pretty fun, especially if you're just jamming out on the keyboard, because you can get a lot of interesting sounds and textures out of it. Now one quick little disclaimer, I'm by no means at all sponsored by Boscomac. I was just searching the web one day for some free plugins and I stumbled upon their website, and they have a ton of free instrument plugins and effects as well. The only catch is that you have to have the full version of Native Instruments Reaktor in order to use them. I think that's a pretty small price to pay considering all you get with Reaktor, not to mention all the other user-generated content that you can get with it. So I think it's a pretty great deal. So without further ado, let's take a look at this plugin. Now, as the name Snowflake should imply, we all know that no two snowflakes look alike, right? Well, that's basically the general idea behind the sound of this instrument, is that no two sounds should be alike, right? So you've got these different parameters here, octave, vibrato, texture, etc., etc. Now, rather than changing the sound gradually or statically as you make adjustments to the knob here, you're adjusting the percentage value that, say, an octave will happen, or how often your notes will be vibrato when you play them. That's the idea behind this plugin. So what you end up with is a lot of really interesting, unique, and almost random tonal and texture qualities when you're playing the sound, and it makes for a lot of fun when you're playing it. So let me show you guys what I mean here. Let's start off by playing a quick example here with the octave control, and we'll get to the texture one in just a second because this one's a little bit different than the others. So I'm just going to go ahead and play some simple chords with the octave percentage all the way down, and then we'll increase the percentage of how often octaves will happen, and we can hear the difference. So here we go. All right, so as we can plainly see here, just by adjusting the octave parameter, you're going to end up with a lot of interesting sounds. Not only will the notes you play be randomly played as octaves, but because of those changes, you're going to end up with a lot of different and interesting chord inversions as well. So I think that's really cool. Next we have vibrato, which simply is just the higher percentage vibrato is, the more notes you play will be played with vibrato. So let's just have a quick listen there. Pretty simple, it's more of a subtle change, but that can certainly add some more interest to the notes that you're playing. Okay, so now the texture parameter. This one is different than the others because it's connected to this random button down here. So when we have random off, it's not going to be a percentage value, but rather as you increase the texture parameter here, the texture of the notes will change. So let me demonstrate that. So when you adjust the texture, you're simply changing the texture of the sound and you're adding a bit more of a percussive element the higher that it goes. When you hit random, it doesn't matter where this texture knob is because every note will be a different randomized texture. So again, I prefer to leave this one on unless you like a particular sound, then you can leave it off and choose your preferred sounding texture. Okay, so next we have the sample reduction parameter here. Quite simply, the higher it is, the higher chance that the notes being played will be sample reduced. Next, the drive parameter. simply changes the percentage of how likely the notes will be driven or distorted. Okay, so now moving on to the right side. So next we have the keyboard/automatic button here, which is tied to the regularity knob. Now what happens here is that when it's set to keyboard, regularity doesn't do anything. Simply setting it as keyboard allows you to play the notes on your keyboard like so. When it's set to automatic, the regularity sets how regular the notes will be played automatically. So you can't play the notes on your keyboard, but rather Snowflake itself will generate notes for you, typically in a very musical fashion. So let's demonstrate that. So as you can see there, when regularity is set to 0 here, it plays fairly regular, and that's determined by your BPM. So one more time, for example. Okay, pretty straightforward. Next, you have the magic button here. This one I think is pretty cool. You have a few different settings that just adds a bit of flair, a bit of pizzazz, a bit of whatever the heck you want to call it, really. Let me demonstrate what the magic button does. So again, you have a few different settings there. It just changes, it just adds a bit of a subtle effect to the end of the notes that you're playing. Next, the level knob is simply how loud the instrument it is itself. So I typically just leave that alone in the center here. Release, of course, will change the release, how often the note or how long the note is being held for. So again, you can adjust that to your preference. Finally, spread will change the spread, how wide it's being spread on the stereo image. I typically like to leave it pretty wide sounding. And of course, for example, let's go ahead and play some notes as we change the spread parameter. Okay, so now that we know how all the different parameters work, let's go ahead and see what kind of sounds we can come up with. And just for the purposes of making it sound a little sweeter, we're going to go ahead and add some reverb on here, which I simply preloaded here is Valhalla's Shimmer, which is a fantastic plugin. Perhaps I'll do a video on this one a little bit later. Okay, so let's take a listen here. I'm just going to change some of the effects, and then I'll go ahead and play some notes here. So we're going to increase the octave a little bit. We're going to add some more vibrato, a little bit of drive, and a little bit of noise reduction in here as well. I typically find that I get better results with lower amount of reduction and drive here, but that's just my personal preference. We're going to go ahead and randomize our textures here, and we're going to add the magic all the way up here, and we're going to leave the spread sort of maximized here. So obviously regularity is at 0. It's not going to matter because we're going to keep it at at keyboard. And let's go ahead and play some notes. And there you have it. Some simple parameters changed and you have a really dreamy sound. Let's go ahead and quickly layer that with piano just to see how it sounds. Alright, so there you have it, guys. That's Snowflake in a nutshell. Really interesting, unique, fun synth. It's a lot of fun to play around with on its own, or like I said, get creative, layer it with other instruments, and you'll be jamming for hours. So yeah, guys, definitely check it out. I'll leave a link in the description to where you can find this one, and I think I'll be making a few more of these videos as well, just to showcase more sort of underground or unique instrument plugins. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching the video, guys. If you liked it, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you're new to this channel, definitely consider subscribing if you felt I've earned your subscription today. I'll be doing more tutorials like this in the future, more instrument plugin showcases, and posting more original music, because that's what I like to do. So once again, guys, thank you so much for watching. I'm going to let Snowflake play us out here, and we'll catch you in the next video. See you later.